What's up, guys? This is Robert with that Infernal Noise. This is going to be a quick episode today. I'm trying to get back into the swing of things. Life has been hectic, as it always is, has been, and probably will always be. A lot of things have changed. I have had several mental breakdowns since the last time I have done this, and I feel like me not doing this isn't helping. I feel like I need to purge all of these things out of me in some shape, way, or form. That being said, I am starting therapy as of next Wednesday. I'm recording this on the 2nd, and I start therapy on the 12th for the first time in my life. I mean, I think there was, I know there was certain things before whenever I was younger, but I don't really count that because I didn't know what it was for. I was taken essentially against my will. That's another story. But the main thing I just want to say in this is we have to take better care of ourselves. I know with the quarantine, pandemic, whatever, as it has been, it's been very stressful on everybody. Especially for those of us that are cooped up in the house. And I do consider myself fortunate that I've been able to work from home this entire time, over a year at this point. And I have been able to spend a lot of time with my kids, unlike a lot of other people. It's been great, actually. I feel that the positive that came out of all of this is I did get to know my kids better. And it's not that I didn't know them in the first place, obviously. I mean, if you know me at all, you know I have a pretty close relationship with my children, especially the older two, because obviously they're easier to talk to and I can communicate with them on an adult level as opposed to a child level. But even the younger two, I've gotten to understand them and their psyches and what makes them tick a little bit more since we made the decision last year to keep them home as opposed to going into school. Whether or not that was the right decision remains to be seen. But I'm the type of person that would rather err on the side of caution and not take any undue chances, as it were. And I would much rather be responsible for them being isolated as opposed to be responsible for them getting sick. That was my and the other three parents' mindset at the time, regardless. But the drawback of working from home, of being cooped up in the exact same house 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for over a year is, well, for me, I don't know about everybody else, but I personally, I've taken this time to reflect inwardly, for better or for worse. I did figure out a lot of things. There's certain things that I figured out about myself that I don't exactly like. I mean, to put it bluntly, I was inebriated for the first time in I don't even know how long at this point. And essentially what happened is I had an existential crisis. I was having a conversation with my wife, and I was lucid enough to know what was going on. And I don't remember the comment that I made, but it triggered a cascade of just every fucked up thing in my head, every single negative thought, and I realized I was putting up a front, and I was putting up these fake images of myself. I was putting on a show, essentially, and I was playing a character as opposed to just being myself. And I don't know when I started doing that. as terrifying as that is to say. I think I know, like, right about when, or it's possible, but I don't know. I have been a scared child since I was a scared child. I've always done things to try to gain acceptance and be the cool guy, and just a bunch of shit that I don't know if I needed to do. I don't know if I wanted to do it. I don't know. I don't know at this point, is what it boils down to. I have no idea. And in that existential crisis, I realized that I don't like myself in the slightest. I see very little upside to me as a person, looking from my perspective. I would like to think that other people don't hold me in that same regard, because if they did, Jesus Christ. But I have this insane ability to turn things that should be innocuous, things that should be taken as a compliment, into, oh, well, this person is saying that because they're supposed to say that in this moment. They don't actually feel that. They are doing this to placate me or to string me along or whatever. Insert whatever fucked up situation you can think of. And I have all of those in the span of, I don't know, an hour, something like that. I don't know what the triggers are. Sometimes I can figure it out, but more often than not, there's, again, something innocuous that happens, something that is flippant, not intending to do anything, not intending to be malicious, whatever, and something in my brain just clicks on. And it's not something good. I wish it was. I wish that it worked in the inverse, to where I would have a negative thought and then all of the positives would click on and be like, no, you're great, you're this, you're that, and all this shit. But it doesn't work like that. Not for me, at least. I hope one day I can get better. I hope one day that I don't have to worry about apologizing to my wife because I lash out whenever I feel like I've been wronged or whatever situation pops into my head. I would like to grow as a person to where I don't have to hold on to the past. And for the most part, I do fairly well with that. I'm, without getting into too much, like, one of my best friends is my ex-wife. Do with that what you will. And that's not saying anything negative about her. It's not saying anything negative about me, although there's plenty of that. But that, to me, shows me that we both have the ability to not hold on to things and to truly do what's best and create the best situation, in this situation, for our mutual children. I've gotten into fights with her husband, and this is before they were even married, like fights, arguments, whatever. And I still consider him one of my best friends. Because we don't hold on to shit. Like, we did hold on to shit for a very long time and held it against each other for a very long time, until I don't even remember which argument or whatever it was, but I remember he and I had to come to Jesus, and it was just like, look, we can't keep doing this. Either we're going to throw hands and fucking figure this shit out, or we need to drop this shit and just be friends. Because if we're going to be friends, we need to be friends. If we're not going to be friends, we need to not be friends. And luckily, that situation worked out for our benefit. He and I are closer than we probably ever have been, and that's saying something, considering whenever we were kids. But for some reason, the one thing, well, not the one thing, but the biggest problem I've had, not even just in my adult life, but in my teenage life and whatever else, is I can't, in the moments whenever that switch turns on and everything negative happens, I can't prevent myself from looking at the past with my significant other. And it's not just niche. Every single woman I've ever been with has had to deal with some form of that. Some rightfully so. Not arguing that. Because you do have to have some form of atonement for things that happen and blah, 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 blah. I get that. But a lot of the shit that I take out on niche is my own fears, my own psychoses, and basically every negative thing that has ever happened to me in the course of my life. Coincidentally, most of them have been caused by women, but that's neither here nor there. Well, I mean, I guess that is important. And why I'm so easy to anger whenever it comes from a female that I'm in a like I have a attachment to. Anyway, I'm very terrified about starting therapy. I don't know how I'm going to react. I don't know what's going to come of it. I do know that I can no longer continue down this road I'm on without seeking some form of help, some form of, I guess, mediation, thought mediation, however you want to phrase it. I as somebody that has prided himself on being the one to shoulder the load, the one to take care of everybody and keep everybody together and maintain the status quo and maintain this relationship and that relationship out of some misguided sense of loyalty or whatever the situation is. It's very, very difficult for me to let go of anything. Just in general. I would like to let go of things. And for the most part, I think I'm pretty good at it. I try to give people the grace that they deserve and understand that we're all human and we all make mistakes. And, I think a good 80-90% of the time, I am that guy. I am the one to, dude, we make mistakes. It's okay. You don't have to prostrate yourself and all that fucking bullshit. It's not necessary. Yeah, you need to learn from it. Yeah, you need to not make the same mistake again, but we're human. And I say that as a complete hypocrite because I don't extend myself that same grace. I don't extend myself that same understanding. Whenever I fuck up, it's the end of the world. Like with work, I've noticed that. Like I try to mitigate my mistakes as much as possible whenever it comes to a professional setting or work or whatever. Just like with everything, but whenever I do make those mistakes, I automatically think, well, that's it. They're going to fire me. And through all of this, I've really had to take a look at that and why do I do that? I mean, yeah, you might screw up enough to where they do fire you. Duh, that can't happen. But why is that where my head automatically goes? Why is it that, oh, well, Nish and I are fighting. We're arguing about something that started out as something stupid and now it's turned into this and she's going to get tired of it. She's going to fucking bail. Oh, I'm drinking all the time. This previously, not now. She's going to get tired of my shit. She's going to bail. And, while no relationship's perfect. Like, she and I get at each other. We've done it before. We're probably going to do it again. I don't want to be the one responsible for that anymore. I don't want to be the one hurting her. I don't want to be the one to cause further trauma, I guess, is what it boils down to. Um, I've had to carry her through some things, same way she's had to carry me, because as adults that grew up with severe abandonment issues, severe trust issues, as children, to grow up and become parents yourselves and quote unquote functioning adults, we don't always know how to deal with things. I mean, we listen to Chris Titus, and the people that have been through some shit know that whenever the shit's about to hit the fan, you step to the side of the fan, and that is true in most situations. But whenever it comes to navigating our emotions and understanding them and figuring out a way to let down the barriers and take down the walls and let people in and understand other people in an empathetic sense and understand ourselves in an empathetic sense, that's a completely foreign world to us. Because we never had an example of what that was in our childhood. We had the exact opposite. We had people that didn't deal with the situation, that bailed or were never there to begin with, or medicated themselves in whatever form or fashion instead of dealing with reality. And there's a million different stories that everybody has, not just ourselves, but our generation is quite possibly the most fucked up because of all that stuff. Because us 30-somethings, 40-somethings, we have enough presence of mind to know that there is something better. Like, we can be better as far as knowing that there's a problem and wanting to fix it and wanting to better ourselves and all that stuff. Just based on what I've known historically and based on what I've seen historically, we seem to be the most intelligent whenever it comes to that. So we're stuck between a rock and a hard place because we want to teach our children not to be as emotionally stunted as we are, and open and inviting and understanding people and themselves and being in touch with all that. But we have our parents' generation, in my case, my grandparents' generation, that we were raised by, that they don't even know where to begin with something like that. They knew hard work equals success. And while that's not necessarily untrue, that shouldn't necessarily be the thing that you impart to your children. You should teach them a work ethic by all means. Like, that's... Our children's generation is sorely lacking that, with a few shining examples, one of which being my son, and I couldn't be prouder. He's not entitled. None of my kids are entitled, which I thoroughly enjoy because that's the way we raised them. But we also raised them to be emotionally intelligent and to, if you have a problem, you need to talk about it and blah, 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 blah. Whenever we were growing up, that exact opposite was true. All you did was work hard, nose to the grindstone, hustle it out, and everything will be fine. Never addressing, oh, well, you're going to feel like this. Oh, this is going to get you down, whatever. Never addressing any of that. And if as a male, you show any kind of emotion, even as a child, a small child, it's suck it up, pussy. Quit being a baby. Quit being a bitch. Stop crying. Blah, 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 blah. And while that is necessary in some situations, 100%. If you don't get your way and you start pitching a fit, yeah, you need to suck that the fuck up. But if there's some pain that you're dealing with, and as a child you cry, why are we telling kids that they need to suck it up and stop being a bitch? They don't know how to figure out what is actually wrong with them. They know this thing happened and I hurt and I can't figure out what to do about it. I can't figure out how to process this. So it turns into a visceral emotional response, i.e. crying. And that's a bad thing for some reason. I know I was told that as a kid. I was also told children are supposed to be seen and not heard. Which, I mean, in some situations, again, yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. Sometimes you need to sit there, shut the fuck up, and take in everything because that's how you're going to learn. Some of my biggest learning moments in my life are just sitting in a garage with my grandfather and his brother-in-law and one of their nephews. And it wasn't anything. It was 3 guys sitting around shooting the shit, talking all kinds of crazy shit, laughing, cutting up, doing all of that, playing pool. That's all it was. So I do understand that. But the problem with children are supposed to be seen and not heard is that correlates to everything. It turns into, well, okay, I need to not talk. Whenever I'm around adults, I don't say anything. I don't express myself. I don't have an opinion. It turns into all of that. Whether or not anybody realizes it, that's what it turns into. And I'm not above telling my kids to sit down, shut the fuck up. I'm not above that at all. Because sometimes daddy needs quiet. Sometimes mom needs quiet. Sometimes we need to be able to hear our own thoughts so we can figure out what we're doing. But overall, my children know that if they have a problem, if they have an issue, there's 4 of us that they can go to at any given moment and say, I need to talk about this. And most of the time, it's not even, I need to talk about this. I mean, there's been so many times, especially with Chris and Kaylee, again, because they're older, they just come in here whenever we're about to tell them to go to bed or whatever, and they'll just sit down on the bed and just start yapping. And I'm not saying it in a negative way whatsoever. Some of it is innocuous stuff. Some of it's just us cutting up, talking, whatever. Some of it's serious stuff. I'm like, well, I had to deal with this at work in Chris's case. Or, oh, my teacher's doing this in Kaylee's case. Or friends are saying this, that, and the other, and they're having to deal with it, or whatever. Just whatever. They have that safety net. They have that understanding where they know that they could just walk into our room and just unload. And anything that's bothering them, anything that they feel like they need to talk about, want to talk about, whatever, it's all on the table. Whatever you need to say, go ahead and say it. And a lot of our generation never had that. Never had anything remotely close to that. It was more of, okay, well, you're just a stupid kid. You don't know what you're talking about. Just wait. Blah, 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 blah. And, again, I do some of that to the kids because I want them to gain perspective and be like, I understand that you think this is very serious right now, like whenever they've gone through breakups or whatever. But ultimately, it's whenever you look back on your life, you're not going to remember this. Some things you will. And we've had that conversation with them too. But I digress. I think that not having those relationships as a child has emotionally stunted me whenever it comes to understanding myself. Because I tend to understand other people, and I tend to give other people leniency whenever it comes to reactions and just giving general advice about life and shit like that. Like, I tend to be very good with that. I could tell everybody, my opinion on what they should do, and I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be right. But whenever it comes to my own life, I can't see the forest through the trees, and I'm trying to figure out how to process all that. I've been overstimulated for so long with just like my workload, and then being the parent of 4 kids and maintaining a marriage, and then on top of all that, worrying about the stress of whatever the fuck this pandemic shit was. And I don't know where to begin. I have no clue. And for somebody that has to keep charge of everything and have to make sure everything's held together and all that shit, that's a scary, scary place. And I am terrified right now. And I was having a conversation with my wife on Friday. It was just her and I for dinner, because me and Gabriel were kind enough to keep the little one with the older 3. And I was just trying to explain all of this to her in my head. And it's like, I don't know who I am anymore. Because I've spent, probably 20 years at this point, always trying to make everybody else happy. Always trying to be what everybody else, or what I thought everybody else wanted me to be. I tried to be responsible. I tried to take everything on my shoulders and be like, no, I'm the strong man. I got this. I don't give a shit if my back's broken. I'm going to keep carrying it because that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm going to do it all with a smile, and you're never going to see me crack. Well, guess what? I cracked. I didn't even just crack. I'm fucking broken. Really broken. Like, I don't know where to start to piece myself back together. I don't know who I am as a person. I don't know. I know what I like. I know what I'm into. But I'm always afraid of judgment. And for somebody that's had a DGAF mentality his entire life, that's don't give a fuck, supposedly, I've always cared. As much as I've said I don't, I do. And judgment and all of that shit is always in the forefront of my mind. Oh, well, they're going to think I'm a nerd if I say this. If I'm into this, these type of people won't want to hang out with me, or I'm going to be looked at differently. I'm going to be seen as not as intelligent because I'm into like horrorcore music or the juggalo shit or metal or whatever, because everybody for some reason associates lower intelligence with that kind of stuff, which absolutely isn't true. Some of the smartest people I have ever met are involved in dark, aggressive music. But then I worry about those dark, aggressive music people looking at me as a father, somebody that's madly in love with his wife, somebody that has been a Star Wars nerd since he can't even remember when. And I worry about judgment from that side. Like, oh, he's a nerd. He's not one of us, and blah, 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 blah. It's a constant mindfuck. With work, I worry that if I'm myself and I voice my opinions and I say the things that are in my head, just jokingly or whatever, people are going to change their opinion of me. Like, oh, he's not quiet and reserved. He's fucking batshit crazy, which isn't necessarily untrue, but I worry about everything. I literally worry about everything. I worry about making sure everything's done, even if it's not my responsibility. Or shouldn't be my responsibility or whatever. I worry about maintaining friendships and relationships that have long since run their course. I've set so many boundaries with so many people over God knows how many years. And I've watched them be stepped on and pushed to the side and all of that so many times, and I just looked the other way. And whenever Nish and I got together almost 10 years ago now, it'll be 10 years in November, I started slowly cutting those people out of my life. People that I considered family. People that I thought would always be there no matter what. And because of Mandy and I's breakup and Nish and I getting together, I mean, it really flushed out everybody and their true intentions and what they actually thought. And I started picking them off one by one. You're out, you're out, you're out. Never look back. And I still have a problem with it. Whenever people that I've known for way too long, family included, continue doing things that I don't agree with, I tend to look the other way, and I'm not doing that anymore. I can't do that with anything, because I've done it with myself too. And if I'm being fair to me, and most importantly to Nish, I have to change. I can't have the same toxic behavior. I can't allow the same toxic behavior. I can't do any of it. I got to get better. And that's my goal for the rest of the year. It's the beginning of May 2nd to be exact, as I'm recording this. And my goal for the next 7 months is to be a better person than I am right now. That's always my goal, but more so right now. I hope this finds everybody well. I hope if you're not doing good, you can find something to help you get better. You can find the help that you need. You can find an ear, whatever you need. But don't be afraid to look for it. You don't have to shoulder the load on your own. And I'm speaking to myself right now. You do have a support system. You do have people that care about you. And things will eventually get better, but you have to put in the work just like everything else. So everybody, if you're listening to this, be nice to each other. But most importantly, be nice to yourselves. See y'all later.